Welcome back, everyone. I'm mining deep in Minecraft tonight, clearing out tunnels and collecting resources. It's slow work, but it reminds me of something. Sometimes you have to dig through a lot of dark, tough places before you find anything of real value. And today's Reddit story is a perfect example of that. Someone forced to start with nothing, only to rebuild everything on their own terms. Today's story is titled, My Mum Stole my $45,000 college fund for my sister's house, so I slept in my car at 18. Now a millionaire, I faced them again and turned the tables. It's a mix of betrayal, resilience, and the ultimate payback. The moment that reshaped my life was watching my sister Abigail and our mother Eleanor step into the reception for my new $1.2 million home, a testament to every late-night grind and sacrifice poured into launching my tech startup. Yet my chest tightened, and a shiver ran through me as I caught the familiar look in their eyes, a look that took me back to when I was 17, the night everything fell apart. Raised in Seattle, our family seemed ordinary on the surface. Dad worked in accounting, Mum managed a small flower shop, and we had 2 daughters, plus a Labrador named Max. But beneath the facade, things were far from perfect. When I was 13, the fractures started to show. Dad left, and though the divorce wasn't explosive, what followed set the stage for years of family chaos. Abigail, 4 years older, married Thomas, a lawyer from a wealthy family. Their lavish wedding drained Mum's savings, over $60,000 she couldn't afford, because as she put it, a daughter's wedding is a once-in-a-lifetime event. At 18, I was juggling 2 part-time jobs, taking community college classes, and barely able to afford my role as a bridesmaid. Then came their kids, Sophie, Liam, and Emma. With each child, Abigail's sense of entitlement grew, and Mum was always there to bail them out, often at my expense. "Your sister has a family to support," Mum would say. "Why do you need money for textbooks?" The library's free meanwhile, I was burning out, working as a cashier mornings, a tutor evenings, and a freelance coder on weekends. Sleep was a rare treat. Dad vanished to Denver, starting a new family, and Mum made it nearly impossible for him to reach me, forgetting to pass on his calls, or accidentally deleting his emails. Still, I pushed forward. While Abigail posted perfect family vacation photos, I pulled all-nighters coding and studying. I graduated at the top of my class, but Mum left my ceremony early because Abigail called. Emma had a slight fever. I never complained. I accepted it and vowed to build my own success. No one's approval required. But I never anticipated how my 17th birthday would redefine everything, leading to a confrontation 15 years later. It was a Wednesday, my 17th birthday, and I'd managed to get the night off. A rare break. I didn't expect a big party. Abigail and Thomas were expecting their 3rd child, soaking up all the family's attention. Still, turning 17 felt significant. I was an adult, had finished high school, and earned partial scholarships to 2 colleges. When I got home from tutoring, I found Mum and Abigail at the dining table, poring over documents. They barely looked up. "There's leftover pasta in the fridge," Mum muttered, eyes glued to the papers. I warmed some food and sat nearby, curious. "What's this about?" I asked. Mum glanced up. "Just sorting out some finances. Abigail and Thomas need a bigger place with Emma coming." I nodded, used to these talks, but a chill hit me. "Why are you looking at my college forms?" Abigail sighed heavily. "We might as well tell her, Mum." Mum adjusted the papers and fixed me with that look, the one that always preceded a family sacrifice. "Claire, we need to talk about your college plans. With Abigail expecting, they need a 5-bedroom house. Thomas's bonus fell short this year, and they're stretched thin." I stayed calm, sensing the direction. "The thing is," Abigail said, "we've crunched the numbers. Even with Thomas's income, and Mum chipping in for the down payment, we're short." "Short for what?" I asked, though I knew the answer. "We need to use your college fund," Mum said bluntly. "You've got scholarships already, and community college is fine. You can transfer later when things ease up." My college fund, the one Dad set up before the divorce, the one Mum swore would stay untouched, was my lifeline to cover what scholarships didn't. "That's my money," I said quietly. "Dad saved it for my education." Abigail rolled her eyes. "Don't be so self-centered, Claire. This is about a home for your niece and nephews. Where's Emma supposed to sleep? In a corner because you want some elite college?" "That's not what I mean," I said, voice steady. "I've worked so hard. I've kept a 4.0 GPA while juggling jobs. Those scholarships don't cover everything." "Take out loans like normal people," Abigail snapped. "Thomas and I have a mortgage. That's reality. Or stay home and go to community college. It's cheaper." Something inside me snapped. Years of giving in, of putting Abigail first, boiled over. "No." The word hung there. Mom blinked, caught off guard. "What?" "No," I repeated louder. "That money is for my education." Dad set it aside for me, not Abigail's house. Mum's face hardened. "This isn't up for debate, Claire. Your sister has a family to care for, and I have a future to build," I shot back, voice breaking. "I've earned those scholarships. I've worked while keeping perfect grades. I deserve to use my fund for college." Abigail laughed coldly. "Please, like you understand responsibility, try raising 3 kids before you talk about what you deserve." Tears stung, but I held them back. "This isn't fair, and you know it." Mum stood, chair scraping. "My priority is my education," I said. "That's not wrong." "Fine," Mum said, arms crossed. "If that's your stance, you've got a choice. Accept that the money's going to your sister, or pack up and figure out your own path. You're 17 now." The ultimatum lingered. Abigail smirked. Sure, I'd cave as always, but something had broken inside me. Years of being sidelined, of my needs coming last. I stood slowly. "I'll pack." Their stunned faces might have felt good if I weren't so scared. Mum hadn't expected me to choose myself. "Don't be ridiculous," Abigail scoffed. "Where would you even go?" I didn't answer. I went to my room, grabbed a duffel bag, and packed clothes, essentials, my laptop, and important papers. Family photos stayed on the walls. They didn't feel like mine anymore. Mum appeared in the doorway as I zipped the bag. "You're overreacting. Sleep on it, and we'll talk tomorrow." "There's nothing to talk about," I said, surprised by my calm. "You've made your choice. I'm making mine." I hauled my bag past her, grabbed my coat from the hall, and walked out into the night. No one followed. No one called. That night, I slept in my car in a grocery store parking lot, using my work jacket as a pillow. For 3 weeks, I kept that routine, working 3 jobs, sleeping in my car, showering at a cheap gym membership. I told no one. On day 22, my programming instructor, Professor Sarah Mitchell, noticed me dozing in the library. She gently woke me and asked if I was okay. Her kind eyes broke my guard, and I spilled everything. That night, she took me to her home and showed me her spare room. "Stay as long as you need," she said simply. "No one should go through this alone." Professor Mitchell became more than a teacher. She became my guide, my supporter, the first person to believe in me without conditions. She helped me secure more scholarships, navigate financial aid, and wrote a glowing recommendation for an internship that changed my trajectory. The aftermath of that evening, when I was forced out, defined every step I took afterward. It taught me that I was truly independent, but that found family could offer more backing than blood relations ever did. Above all, it revealed an inner resilience I didn't know existed until circumstances demanded I uncover it. Thanks to Professor Mitchell's guidance, I managed to gather sufficient grants, awards, and side gigs to enroll in a nearby public university instead of my top choice institution. It wasn't the University of Washington, but its programming department was solid, and that mattered to me. My university experience stood in stark contrast to that of my classmates. While they attended gatherings and participated in extracurriculars, I juggled multiple roles to stay solvent, such as serving tables, manning the campus tech support line, and handling independent software gigs into the wee hours. Rest was a rare indulgence, and friendships were scarce. Even with the demanding routine, I kept an impeccable academic record. The coursework in programming felt intuitive, and I often guided fellow students who were faltering, including one named Mia Chen. Mia, a sharp but scattered mind, turned into my closest companion and future collaborator. We complemented each other perfectly in many ways. I was organised and precise. She was spontaneous and bold. My strength lay in server-side development. Hers was in interface aesthetics and usability. As a team, we were unbeatable. In our third year, we started brainstorming an application for budgeting aimed at emerging adults. Most available options catered to those already stable financially, not folks like us scraping by from one check to the next. We spotted an opportunity and were eager to seize it. Leveraging school facilities, we built an initial version. We called it FinEase, a tool that allowed people to track their expenses visually, set up automatic transfers for reserves, and build smart borrowing habits. Our instructors were enthusiastic, but more importantly, our peers found it incredibly useful. Upon finishing our degrees, Mia and I faced a crossroads: secure positions at big firms or pursue our entrepreneurial vision. The reliable route tempted me, given my shaky finances. Yet, I recalled Professor Mitchell's advice: often the boldest choices yield the biggest payoffs. We leapt in, relocating to a cramped, bug-ridden apartment to cut costs. We poured everything into FinEase. I programmed over instant noodles. Mia refined designs until sunrise. We attended every mixer, contest, and accelerator we could access. For half a year, we faced constant denials. Funders thought we lacked maturity, expertise, or market focus. Young adults aren't interested in money management, one investor scoffed. But we kept going. Our turning point came with a modest startup award, which let us bring on our initial staff member, a promotions expert who helped sharpen our pitch. We adjusted our target to new alumni burdened by debts instead of active undergraduates. The platform built momentum slowly at first, then rapidly. It got spotlighted in a tech publication. An influencer in finance with a massive audience promoted FinEase, and our users jumped from a few thousand to several 100,000. During all this, I sometimes pondered contacting my kin. Communication had been minimal since that fateful night. Mum reached out 4 months later, not with regrets, but to inform me they'd used my education savings for Abigail's property deposit. Dad occasionally messaged to see how I was, but we stayed estranged. Instead, I channeled my energy into expanding the venture and my own growth. Time flew by in a whirlwind of development, discussions, and eventual triumphs. Mia and I upgraded from our rundown space to a real workspace. We added more coders, support reps, and outreach pros. FinEase evolved into a full-fledged money management system. 6 years from launch, we fielded a buyout proposal from a leading fintech giant in the nation. The figure was enormous, enough to set Mia and me up for life several times. After extended talks, we accepted. I was 29 and abruptly more affluent than I'd ever dreamed. The anxious 17-year-old crashing in her vehicle seemed like someone from another lifetime. With stability came the ability to choose wisely, not desperately. I allocated much of my proceeds to investments, contributed to funds for pioneering college attendees, and finally pondered creating a true residence, not merely a spot to rest amid endless hours. Following extensive hunting, I found the perfect one. A charming Victorian-style house in a prestigious area. At one point, $2 million, it was a significant outlay, but easily manageable. The 5-bedroom property boasted warmth and appeal, with polished wood surfaces, expansive glass panes, a front veranda, and a spacious garden. It required updates, but I saw its promise immediately. As I finalised the purchase documents, the irony struck me. 15 years earlier, my savings had been drained to aid Abigail in upsizing her residence. Now, through my efforts alone, I owned a place worth over $1 million. Amid the upgrades, I received a surprising message from my father. He'd come across the FinEase sales story on the web and wished to offer kudos. Our conversation was awkward, but it sparked potential. He admitted he'd lost contact after my departure and felt too ashamed to pursue it more. He'd ended another marriage and returned to Seattle. Might I be open to grabbing a drink? That meeting over tea was strained yet restorative. Dad expressed sorrow for his absence in my tough times. He acknowledged knowing about the savings issue, but feeling powerless to step in. Forgiveness didn't come instantly, but I valued his candor. We committed to slowly rebuilding ties. In our discussion, he mentioned that Abigail and Thomas were facing money woes once more. Evidently, they'd had to sell off assets after Thomas's firm downsized. Mum kept assisting them however possible. They have no idea about your achievements, Dad noted. I haven't shared. I acknowledged it, uncertain of my emotions. Part of me yearned for them to see I'd thrived without their help. Another part favoured keeping my victories private. As the home improvements wrapped up, I organised a welcome gathering. After much reflection, I added my family to the invitees. Mia cautioned that I might be inviting letdown, but I believed it was essential to resolve that era, for better or worse. I sent proper notices to Dad, Mum, Abigail and Thomas. Dad replied quickly, confirming. Mum phoned surprised but willing. Abigail messaged, excited to check in on you. Will attend. The setup was in place for a gathering I hadn't foreseen, one destined to be more intense than anticipated. The day of the event dawned bright and pleasant. Though I'd been up late finalising details, I rose at dawn. Each space was impeccable. The family room with its plush sofa and custom shelving, the high-end kitchen featuring granite surfaces and top-tier equipment, the eating area that could host a dozen easily, and 5 elegantly furnished sleeping quarters above, including a primary retreat with a deck facing the garden. Mia showed up around 11 o'clock, carrying wine and adornments. You certain about this? She asked, setting out blooms. You can still retract the invites. I need resolution, I replied, my gut twisting at the thought of facing my mum and sister. Plus, there are only 4 among 40 attendees. If it turns awkward, there'll be ample distractions. The food service team came at noon and arranged setups throughout the main floor. By 2 o'clock, all was prepared. Cuisine, beverages, tunes, and my anxiety peaked. My tech associates came early, then locals. Professor Mitchell appeared with her spouse, hugging me tightly and murmuring her pride. College buddies, professional networks, and my investment consultant rounded out the initial group. At 5 o'clock, the bell chimed once more. I answered to find my father standing uneasily on the steps, clutching a present box. Dad, I said, the term still feeling unfamiliar. Claire, he responded, eyeing the interior. This is remarkable. I welcomed him inside, showed him around briefly, and presented him to some visitors. Dad seemed genuinely amazed at how far I'd come, though he looked slightly uneasy, mingling with the accomplished professionals filling my home. Your mum and sister will be here shortly, he mentioned. They're coming together, I nodded, sipping my sparkling water to mask my nerves. How are they holding up? Dad hesitated. Thomas's job troubles have hit them hard. They sold their place last year and moved into a smaller condo. Eleanor's been helping with the kids a lot. Before I could respond, Mia appeared at my side. More guests are arriving, she said. I think your mum and sister are among them. I steadied myself and headed to the entrance. There they were, Eleanor looking barely older despite the 15 years, and Abigail still striking but with visible tension etched around her eyes. Thomas stood behind them, greyer and more worn than I recalled, with their 3 kids. Sophie, now a teenager, Liam, almost a teen, and Emma, around 11. Claire, Mum said, her voice guarded. Thank you for having us. Come in, I replied, stepping aside. Make yourselves at home. The kids lingered shyly, clearly coached to behave. I gave them a warm smile. I barely knew my niece and nephews. There's a rec room upstairs if you want a break, I offered. First door on the left. That eased the tension a bit. Sophie asked if I had a gaming console, and when I confirmed, the kids dashed upstairs. This is stunning, Thomas said after a quick thanks scanning. The space with a professional eye. The design details are remarkable. Appreciate that, I said. The upgrades took 8 months, but it paid off. 8 months? Abigail raised an eyebrow. That must have required a serious crew. It did, I replied, keeping it brief. Want a tour? As I guided them through the house, Abigail's demeanour shifted to something more calculating. She traced her fingers along the quartz countertops, peeked into storage spaces, and noted the spacious backyard's potential for play. Mum trailed quietly, occasionally commenting on a piece of decor or asking about a feature. This must have cost a fortune, she said softly, as we reached the primary suite. It was a big step, I admitted, but my career's been good to me. What exactly do you do now? Abigail asked, perching uninvited on a chair in the room. Dad mentioned something about software. I gave them a concise rundown of my journey, watching their expressions shift from mild curiosity to stunned recognition. You sold your startup for millions, Abigail's voice pitched up. We did, I confirmed. It was the right moment. Back downstairs, more guests had arrived. I introduced my family to Mia, Professor Mitchell, and various colleagues and friends who knew parts of my story. I caught Mum and Abigail, huddled in a corner, murmuring intently. Thomas seemed detached from their discussion, instead engaging eagerly with my tech industry contacts. About an hour into the event, I tapped my glass to quiet the room. Thank you all for being here to mark this milestone with me, I said. This house isn't just a place to live. It's a symbol of a goal I once thought was out of reach. I'm grateful for everyone who helped me get here. As I wrapped up, Abigail stepped forward. As Claire's sister, I'd like to add something, she said, her tone carrying that familiar confidence from our childhood, the one that always got her what she wanted. Family means everything, she continued, placing a hand on my shoulder. And seeing Claire's incredible home today makes me realise how perfect it would be for our family. The room buzzed with confused whispers. What Abigail's trying to say, Mom interjected gently, is that we're so proud of Claire for building a place where family can come together. No, Abigail cut in, her grip tightening. I mean, this house is ideal for my family. With Thomas's job instability and the kids needing better schools, we've been searching for a place just like this in this exact area. Silence fell. Even the catering staff paused. Abigail, Thomas started, his face reddening. This isn't the moment. It's the perfect moment, she insisted. Claire's always cared about family. She's single, no kids, and clearly thriving. This 5-bedroom house is too much for one person when we have 3 growing kids who need room and security. Mum nodded in agreement. I stood frozen, barely processing their audacity. After 15 years of silence, after taking my college fund, they now demanded my home. Claire, Mum said, her tone slipping into that commanding edge I knew too well. You should find a smaller place. A loft downtown would fit your life better, and it would mean everything to your sister's family. Abigail was already pacing the living room, planning changes. Sophie could have the room with the big windows. Liam would love the blue room, and Emma would have so much space for her things in the smaller one, Mum chimed in. After all Abigail's been through, she deserves this. It's the least you can do as her sister. The room was deathly quiet, guests watching with a mix of shock and curiosity. Mia moved closer, offering silent support. I took a deep breath, feeling an odd calm amidst the absurdity. I have something to share, I said softly, pulling out my phone. I linked it to the large screen in the living room via the smart home system. With a few taps, I displayed a document. What's this? Abigail asked, her voice tight. This, I said, is a restraining order I filed 15 years ago after you forced me out on my 17th birthday. The legal document glowed on the screen, and the room stilled further. The caterers stood frozen, trays in hand. What are you talking about? Mum's voice cracked, blending confusion and indignation. We didn't force you out. You chose to leave, my tone stayed even. Years of composure paying off. On my 17th birthday, you gave me an ultimatum. Let my college fund go to Abigail's house deposit or leave. I left. You didn't stop me. That was a misunderstanding, not an eviction, Abigail scoffed, eyes flicking to the screen. You're exaggerating. I slept in my car for 3 weeks, I said plainly, in March in Seattle. A ripple of murmurs passed through the guests. Dad stepped closer, his face ashen. "I didn't realise it was that bad," he said quietly. "You never told me." "Would it have changed anything?" I asked. He had no answer. I swiped to another document. "This is more telling," I said. The screen now showed credit reports and loan applications in my name, dated shortly after I left home. "What's this?" Thomas asked, leaning in, his financial expertise kicking in. "After I left, someone opened 4 credit cards and a personal loan in my name," I explained. "They had my social security number, my birth certificate, and enough details to pass verification. The debt totaled just over $50,000. Mum's face paled. Abigail suddenly studied her drink intently. "Luckily," I continued, "the investigator I worked with was diligent. The credit cards were used at stores Abigail shopped at. The loan funds went to an account that then transferred the exact amount to your shared account." Thomas turned to Abigail, his voice low. "You said that money was a gift from your mum for the down payment." "It was," Abigail insisted. "Mum arranged it." "By committing identity theft against your own daughter," Professor Mitchell cut in, her usual calm giving way to fierce protectiveness. "That's a crime, in case you didn't know." "This must be a mistake," Mum stammered. "This is the police report I filed," I said, pulling up another document. "I had enough evidence to press charges for identity theft and fraud." The investigator was particularly interested in the loan application. I zoomed in on a signature where someone had tried to forge mine but botched my middle name. Abigail's hand trembled so much she nearly dropped her drink. "If you filed charges, why weren't we arrested?" she asked, her voice faltering. "I didn't press it," I said plainly. "I was 17, scared, and despite everything, you were still my family. I struck a deal with the detective. I'd pay off the fraudulent debts myself if they documented it all, but held off on prosecution." I swiped to another document. This is the payment record. Every penny of that $50,000 plus interest paid off over 4 years while I worked 3 jobs, slept 3 hours a night, and lived on instant noodles to get through college and clear debts I didn't create. Thomas looked ill. "I had no idea," he whispered. "Abigail said your mum covered the down payment as a gift." "Just one parent," I corrected softly. "And it wasn't a gift. It was theft." Mum finally spoke, her voice sharp. "You're spinning this to play the victim. We always did what we could for you. Sometimes families make tough calls for the greater good." "The greater good?" Dad's voice rose, surprising everyone. "Eleanor? She was 17, our daughter, and you stole from her?" Mum whirled on him. "Don't you dare lecture me, Michael." "You walked out. You left me to deal with everything. I left you, not our daughters," he shot back. "And I never signed off on stealing Claire's college fund or committing fraud in her name." "I knew about the fund," he admitted, turning to me. "I'm sorry I didn't push harder for you, but the credit cards, the loan, I had no clue." I nodded, accepting his partial apology for what it was worth. Abigail, seeing her support erode, shifted tactics. "It was a tough time," she said, eyes brimming with tears. "We had a newborn, needed a house. Mum was just trying to help, and you weren't there to ask." "Maybe," I said, "but that doesn't excuse fraud." I swiped to another document. "This might interest you, Thomas." While digging into the identity theft, I uncovered more about your family's finances. These are records of 7 failed ventures Abigail funded without your knowledge, using shared accounts. Losses totaled over $250,000 across 9 years. Thomas's face drained of colour. "What ventures?" "A friend's artisanal bakery, a relative's food truck, a premium subscription box for eco-friendly cosmetics, to name a few," I listed. "All collapsed within months. All were backed by hefty sums from your joint accounts." "Those were loans to friends," Abigail said weakly. "They were supposed to repay with interest." "Is that why you hid the transactions?" I asked. The room felt stifling. Guests shuffled awkwardly, unsure whether to stay for this deeply personal unravelling. "I think," I said loudly, "we've veered off course. You came here today to claim my home, assuming I'd once again sacrifice my needs for Abigail's demands. I'm done with that, so you'll let your sister's family struggle?" Mum asked. "Where's your heart?" "My heart," I gave a humourless laugh. "Where was your heart when I was sleeping in my car in March? Where was it when you stole my identity and saddled me with debt before I even started college? Mum opened her mouth, but closed it without a word. I'm not abandoning anyone, I said, softening, but I'm not giving up my home. If you need help, I'm open to setting up college funds for Sophie, Liam, and Emma. They're not at fault, and I'd like to know my niece and nephews. We don't need your pity, Abigail snapped, though Thomas's expression suggested otherwise. It's not pity, I said. It's family supporting family properly. Mum grabbed her bag. We've heard enough. Abigail, kids, let's go. The kids are upstairs playing games, I reminded her. And Thomas might want to stay. Thomas nodded slowly. I need to understand our finances, he said. The kids can hang out a bit longer. Fine, Mum snapped. Abigail, we're leaving. As they headed out, Mia stepped forward. That's for the best, she said. This is Claire's celebration, not a stage for trying to take her property. Mum's face flushed. How dare you? This is private. Exactly, Mia replied, and Claire's chosen family is here for her. You might want to reflect on what real family support means before you come back. After they left, the party slowly regained its rhythm, though the drama dominated conversations. Thomas stayed in a corner, talking quietly with my financial advisor and glancing at his phone for Abigail's messages. As guests trickled out, he approached me. I owe you an apology, he said formally. I didn't know about the identity theft or the investments. I knew about the college fund, but Abigail said you'd agreed. Would knowing the truth have changed anything? I asked. He paused. I'd like to think so, but back then, I was caught up in status and wealth. Seeing what you've built on your own, he said, glancing around, shows me how wrong my priorities were. What's next for you? I asked. I talk with Abigail, he said grimly, and likely a divorce lawyer. The financial deception is too much to overlook. I felt a surprising pang of sympathy for Abigail. Despite her flaws, I didn't want her marriage to collapse. I meant what I said about college funds for the kids, I told him. No matter what happens with you and Abigail. He nodded gratefully. They'd love to know their aunt. Sophie's into coding, by the way. After Thomas left to get the kids, Mia and I started tidying up. That was the wildest housewarming I've ever been to, she said, loading the dishwasher. I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in years. Not the resolution I pictured, but resolution all the same. Think they'll reach out again? Your mum and Abigail? She asked. When they need something, I said, closing the dishwasher. But I'm ready now. No more being a pushover. As the last guest left and quiet settled over my home, I walked through each room, taking in what I'd built. This wasn't just a house. It was a testament to perseverance, effort, and the courage to stand my ground when it mattered most. The days after were surprisingly calm. I braced for Mum and Abigail to bombard me. Angry calls, guilt-tripping texts, maybe even showing up unannounced. Instead, silence. Thomas called to meet at a cafe near his office. Abigail's staying with your mum, he said over coffee 3 days later. She's got the kids for now, but we're working on shared custody while we figure things out. I'm sorry about your marriage, I said sincerely. He shrugged, looking exhausted, yet relieved. After your party, I dug into our finances. It's worse than you said. We're not just struggling, we're on the brink of bankruptcy. How? I asked. You had a solid job at the firm. Had, he corrected. I was laid off 8 months ago, restructuring. I've been freelancing as a financial consultant, earning a fraction of what I used to. Meanwhile, Abigail kept spending like nothing changed. He slid a folder across the table. These are statements from accounts I didn't know about. Maxed out credit cards, loans I didn't sign for, a second mortgage on the house before we sold it. Scanning the documents, I felt a chill of recognition. She and Mum did to you what they did to me, I said. But on a bigger scale, he confirmed grimly. We're talking nearly $300,000 in debt. What now? I asked. Bankruptcy's likely, he admitted. I nodded. My offer for college funds still holds. I can set up accounts strictly for the kids' education. That would mean the world, Thomas said, his voice thick with genuine appreciation. And maybe, could you spend some time with the kids now and then? They could use stable adults in their lives right now, That conversation marked a turning point for me, Thomas, and the children. They were bright, curious kids navigating their parents' conflict with remarkable strength. About 3 weeks after the housewarming, Dad asked me to join him for dinner. Over risotto at a cozy diner, he opened up about years of family turmoil. "I let you down," he admitted plainly. "After the divorce, Eleanor made it nearly impossible to stay in touch, but that's no justification. I should have fought harder to be in your life." "Why didn't you?" I asked, voicing a question I'd held for 15 years. He exhaled deeply. Guilt, mostly. "The divorce was my doing. I had an affair with my second wife before I left. Eleanor knew and used it to control everything, including my contact with you and Abigail." That revelation reshaped my understanding of our family dynamics, though it didn't absolve his absence. "I also failed to protect your college fund," he continued. "It was in a shared account with Eleanor. I trusted her to handle it fairly, despite our issues. When I learned what happened, I was too ashamed to face you." "You could have helped when I was sleeping in my car," I said. "I didn't know," he replied. "Eleanor told me you were staying with a school friend." By the time I heard the truth, months had passed and you weren't answering my texts. We talked for hours, untangling years of misunderstandings, half-truths and outright deception. Dad wasn't innocent, but I saw he'd been manipulated by Mum nearly as much as I had. "Your mum wasn't always this way," he said. "After Abigail was born, something shifted. She became fixated on giving her a perfect life, often at your expense. I tried to push for balance, to stand up for you, but it only sparked more fights." "Why the favoritism?" I asked, the question that had haunted my childhood. He considered it carefully. "Abigail was like Eleanor, the version she wished she'd been. Charming, sociable, conventional. You're more like me, logical, self-reliant, curious. I think that intimidated her." The first contact from Abigail came 3 days after my dinner with Dad. A lengthy email blending apology and defensiveness. She admitted to the identity theft, but pinned it on financial desperation and Mum's influence. She expressed regret for the housewarming scene, but argued her family's needs outweighed my extravagance. "Classic Abigail," Mia remarked as I shared the email, apologising without owning up. "At least she's admitting something," I said, feeling more at ease now that I was beyond her reach. "That's a step." Mum's approach was more direct. She called daily, leaving voicemails that swung from accusations to tearful pleas. "Families forgive each other," she said in one. "We messed up, but so did you, by humiliating us in front of your guests." I didn't reply immediately, instead working with my therapist, Dr. Laura Nguyen, to establish firm boundaries. "Your mum and sister show classic manipulative patterns," Dr. Nguyen noted in a session. "They're used to you giving in. Your boundaries are new and unsettling to them. I feel guilty sometimes," I admitted, "especially about the kids being stuck in the middle." "That's normal," she assured me, "but you're showing those kids what healthy boundaries look like. Supporting them directly, with college funds and time, is real family care, not the conditional kind you got." Over the next few months, Thomas and Abigail's situation deteriorated. Their divorce proceedings unearthed more financial deceit. Thomas filed for bankruptcy, as expected. Abigail and the kids stayed in Mum's small condo, which grew tense and crowded. 7 months after the housewarming, Thomas landed a steadier job at a mid-sized firm and rented a 3-bedroom apartment. He got the kids every other week under their custody agreement. During his weeks, I'd visit Sophie often, helping her with coding projects, or just being a steady presence. During one visit, Thomas mentioned Abigail had started therapy. "Her therapist thinks it'll help with the divorce and money issues," he said. "I'm skeptical, but it's something." Around the same time, I agreed to meet Mum for tea. The talk was tense but civil. She looked worn, aged by the past 7 months. "Living with Abigail and the kids is tough," she said. "No space, no calm, and her spending—" She trailed off, shaking her head. "You enabled that spending," I pointed out gently. "I wanted her to have what I never did," Mum said, a rare moment of clarity. "I grew up with nothing, Second-hand clothes, no luxuries. I vowed my daughter would have better. You had 2 daughters, I reminded her. She looked sheepish. I know. I told myself you were tougher, more self-sufficient, that you didn't need as much help. It wasn't a full apology, but it was the closest I'd get. Those years of financial deception showed me Mum's behaviour went beyond favouritism, hinting at deeper issues of control, entitlement, and possibly unaddressed mental health struggles. Meanwhile, Abigail's therapy seemed to yield real progress. Our weekly dinners with the kids shifted from strained to tentatively warm. She took a job as a receptionist at a nearby firm, her first steady work since marriage, and moved into a modest apartment when staying with Mum became unsustainable. I never learned to fend for myself, she admitted during one talk. Mum handled everything, then Thomas took over. When it all unravelled, I was lost. I felt an unexpected empathy watching her grapple with basic adult tasks like budgeting and home upkeep. Like me, Abigail had been shaped by Mum's dysfunction, just differently. Her favoured status had stunted her ability to develop independence and resilience. The kids adjusted to their new reality with surprising ease. Sophie, now 12, excelled in the coding club I connected her with. Liam developed a passion for astronomy neither Abigail nor Thomas had noticed. Emma's love for animals grew into a broader interest in biology. I set up college funds for each, with strict terms ensuring the money went only to education, a guard against past mistakes. Thomas and I built an unexpected bond grounded in mutual respect. He faced the financial mess head-on, slowly rebuilding his credit and career, while becoming a more engaged dad than he'd been during his marriage. Bankruptcy was humbling, he admitted, but it's forced me to be honest with myself. Not all ties could be mended, though. Mum kept dodging real accountability, offering half-hearted apologies laced with justifications. At one tense lunch, she suggested my success partly stemmed from her tough love. If we hadn't pushed you out, would you have had the same fire, she mused, as if my homelessness was a planned lesson, not abandonment. I set my spoon down carefully. That's like saying abuse builds character. I survived despite what you did, not because of it. She quickly changed the topic, as always uneasy with direct challenges. These moments confirmed Dr. Nguyen's insight. While Mom might adjust her behaviour to keep contact, true remorse or self-awareness might never come. Some people can't handle the introspection needed for real change, Dr. Nguyen said. You can set your expectations and decide what kind of limited relationship, if any, works for you. As the 1-year mark of owning my home approached, I'd established firm boundaries for family interactions. Monthly dinners with Abigail and the kids, occasional teas with Mum, regular meetups with Dad, and frequent visits with the kids during Thomas's custody weeks. To celebrate the milestone, I planned a modest gathering, a far cry from the previous year's lavish housewarming. Mia came with her new partner. Professor Mitchell and her spouse joined us. Dad arrived with his steady girlfriend, Karen. Thomas brought the kids for a few hours. Even Abigail stopped by briefly, her demeanour surprisingly warm. Mom, however, didn't show. She opted out after I refused to invite certain toxic family acquaintances she'd pushed for. A small but significant victory in holding my ground. As the evening unfolded and guests savoured dessert on the deck, Sophie approached with her tablet. Aunt Claire, can you check my code? I'm working on an app, but the interface keeps glitching. We sat on the patio bench, debugging her Python script as lightning bugs flickered in the fading light. That quiet moment, helping my niece's family supported each other in healthy ways, brought a lump to my throat. I brushed away a tear. You okay? Sophie asked, catching my expression. Better than okay, I said. Just really content here. After everyone left, I roamed through my house, truly mine in every sense. It was more than a shelter. It was a refuge from the destructive family patterns. That nearly broke me. Within these walls, I'd built new traditions, relationships, and a definition of family rooted in mutual respect, not obligation or manipulation. My path from sleeping in my car at 17 to owning this beautiful home at 30 wasn't just about financial success. It was about reclaiming my value, drawing clear lines, and crafting a life that reflected my principles, not others' demands. My relationships with my family would likely always be layered. Mum might never fully own the pain she caused. Abigail's growth could stall. Dad's efforts to reconnect couldn't erase years of absence, but I no longer needed their approval to feel complete. The scared 17-year-old who drove away from her childhood home with nowhere to go had found not just security, but resilience. She'd learned that families often chosen, not inherited, and that standing firm in your truth, however hard, leads to authentic bonds, not empty gestures of duty. Sipping chamomile tea on my porch, gazing at the stars in the warm September sky, I felt profound peace. The journey hadn't been smooth, but it had led me exactly where I belonged. Home, in every sense of the word. And that's the end of this story. What stands out to me is how sometimes being abandoned or betrayed is the very push someone needs to build a life far greater than what was stolen from them. In Minecraft, you can lose everything to a creeper explosion and still come back stronger with better gear. Real life isn't so different. You rebuild piece by piece until you've created something no one can take away. Thanks for hanging out with me tonight. I'll keep mining down here, but don't go too far. There are more unbelievable Reddit stories just around the corner.